Knights at the Round Table, a round table discussion on speculative fiction books and film. Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Knights at the Round Table. Today we are discussing the 1993 science fiction epic Jurassic Park. I'm sitting at the table with Mike and with Marajoalaine, and I'd like to start with general impressions of the film. You get to go first, Mike.
Oh, great. Incredible, amazing, so good. One of my favorite director of all time is Steven Spielberg, and this is one of his several masterpieces. It really holds up 25 years later, and highly influential, I think. And just a really smart, well-made, exciting blockbuster movie. So love it.
Marajoalaine?
Not quite that enthusiastic, but then I did like it. I remember liking it as a kid, but not remembering why exactly. Like, I remember watching the VHS and the DVD my fair share of time and liking it, but it had been a while and the details were getting fuzzy. It was nice to revisit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, agreed. I really like this movie. There are a couple of lines in this movie that made me go, hell yeah.
Mostly Jeff Goldblum.
No!
Oh,
no, Dr. What's her name?
Sattler?
Thank you, Dr. Sattler, who's just like, okay, we can talk about sexism in survival situations when I get back. I'm like, yeah, we can. I loved her when I first watched the movie. I love her now. When I first watched the movie, I was terrified, and I found myself still getting really super tense in this rewatching. I think it's like the 7th time I've seen it, watching this last night, or Friday. Yeah, it's a great movie, and it does hold up, and even the 3D holds up pretty well.
Oh, you watched it in 3D?
No.
Oh, the CGI?
CGI.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
holds up pretty well.
I think so as well, and I will say, a couple of years ago, I installed this, big home theater in my basement with a big pull-down screen and projector and everything, and so, you can see the flaws, and you can see how things actually look, and I will say, I'm shocked by how well the effects hold up. I can say, maybe the skin texture isn't quite as detailed as you would normally see nowadays, but the interactions with the environment and just the movements of the creatures and everything that, everything matched up really well. And I will say, I think what makes them hold up so well, and I think the lesson that filmmakers are finally coming around to again now, is the fact that they use them so sparingly. Now, at the time, they did because they didn't have much other choice, but having a lot of practical effects and giant robots and animatronics and different things like that to simulate the dinosaurs, and only using the CGI when they absolutely needed to, that is really what I think makes it hold up so well. Yes. If they had tried to do all the dinosaurs totally digital the entire time, I think they would look really old, really dated, but I think that's why they hold up so well.
Yes, I agree. The physical effects were spectacular, and it really helps sell the CGI when you do come across it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Dr. Grant scaring kids with his story about velociraptors is my Patronus.
That's great.
It made me laugh then, it makes me laugh now.
Yeah.
So try to show a little respect. I will say, you said 7th time watching it. I do not even want to hazard a guess for how many times I've watched it. It was the VHS tape at that's still at my parents' house. Is showing real signs of wear and tear. A few years ago, I was in the Dominican Republic with my wife, and as she was getting ready, I flipped onto a Spanish language station, and they were showing Jurassic Park, dubbed, and I said every single line along with them. And my wife came into the room, and she looked, and she's like, wait, what you're saying is perfectly matching up with their mouths. I'm like, yeah, it's the dialogue. They know the dialogue. And she was like, okay.
That was me with The Lion King. I could recite it from start to finish, songs included when I was a kid,
So I'm probably pushing 50 on Jurassic Park. I don't even know. I have no clue.
I love the atrium where they walk into, the park proper, and the atrium, they have the skeleton of the T-Rex attacking something else. I can't remember what the other skeleton was.
No, is there another skeleton? I think it's just twisted around.
Well, no, because it's in a weird way then.
Yeah.
Because you walk in, and the first thing that struck me this time was, I think because I'm so used to seeing the movie and the whole absolute not dead-eyed, mindless wonder of the whole thing has worn off a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But that T-Rex skeleton looked like it was doing the can-can. It had one leg stuck straight out. I'm like, okay.
But just, like, in terms of the majesty, like, what I love is, like, the first time you really see a dinosaur, it's in a big open field in full sunlight, and Dr. Grant says, like, that's a dinosaur, and that's a dinosaur, right? And if you look at, like, other big visual effects movies over the next, like, decade, how often, like, Godzilla. Anybody remember Godzilla, 1998? Always at night, always in the rain, always obscuring the, like, shoddy visual effects, but, like, Industrial Light and Magic and, like, Steven Spielberg, they were just like, nope, we're just putting it right up there. There it is. And the wonder's worn off for us, but I think the actors play the wonder so perfectly that you feel it on their behalf. And so even though it's like, yeah, I've seen this Brachiosaurus scene, like, pushing 50 times, right? But, like, I've seen it so many times, but you can still feel it for them, right?
Yes.
And how amazing it is for them. And all of their reactions are just perfect and in character, and that's what sells it now. Yeah. Now that we're past the excitement of the first view, that's what sells the movie.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to talk briefly how well this movie treats both women and children. Children are not useless, screaming obstacles to overcome while you're trying to survive. They're integral to the survival. And also, Dr. Sadler will always have a very special place in my heart.
She's tenacious.
Yeah, she's tenacious.
I'm glad they made her a full doctor for the movie. In the book, she was only a graduate student.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Also, I was going to bring
I haven't read the book, so that's good to know.
Well, I was also going to make a point on the book. In the book, Lex is the dinosaur expert kid, and Lex... I'm sorry. It's not like... Tim. Tim is the dinosaur expert, and Tim is the computer expert. And Lex is just there.
Okay.
And they really, really smartly said, hey, why don't we make one of them the dinosaur expert and one of them the hacker? And that way they both have a reason for being there. And I think it's really cool that they made her the hacker. You know, like that's like looking back on it now, like it's a really interesting approach to the character.
I enjoyed it. It also provided great moments of sibling rivalry where I'm not a computer nerd, I'm a hacker. I'm like, oh, that rings so true. Anybody's had siblings are like, yeah, I know this argument. It's played out 1,000 billion times over.
It's also funny to watch the interface she goes into and be able to like point to kids these days and say, kids, that is not at all what computers used to look like. That is what people that is 25 years ago trying to figure out how to make going through like file directories and things in a computer make it look interesting.
Yeah.
It's not at all that. That is not a Unix system.
I wouldn't know.
But I believe it.
Yeah.
One of the things that did bother me, I have to say, is although yes and no, because that scene where you're first introduced to the T-Rex is fucking brilliant. It's so well done. But when Dr. Grant is like, don't move, his vision is movement based, I'm like, yeah, great. Is his sense of smell movement based? Because pretty sure that he can smell you when you're right up against his nostrils.
Well, it was raining.
Nostrils.
It was raining. I don't know. No, but I always thought like
I know that the dinosaurs.
They don't.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid being like, "Oh, that's cool, vision based on movement, and you know, and that's interesting." And then I remember getting a little bit older and being like, "Yeah, how would they know that? Like these creatures haven't been around. You can't look at fossils and know that that's the case, right? So that's weird." And then getting a little older and being like, oh, I see. So it's almost like the T-Rex's kryptonite, right? It's like too powerful and too menacing. They need to... This is the screenwriters coming up with a way to, like, diminish the T-Rex a little bit, make it possible to survive and everything. And then I kind of came back around to a respect for it, because most people just accept it. It's like, oh yeah, it's vision's based on movement. Like, that's just like a thing now that everybody knows about the T-Rex. And like, you know, it does not hold up to scrutiny at all.
No,
but it's just
not
like,
even a little bit.
But it's just fantastic how they just pulled the wool over people's eyes for like 25 years. And like nobody really thinks about it.
It's easy to fall into it though, because that part is beautifully tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like every moment of that, like the T-Rex like just coming out, and then like the flashlight through the skylight, and then the T-Rex coming through the skylight, and like not being able to quite get them, and like you're right there. And what I find actually now, like I first saw this movie when I was 7 years old, and I put myself in the role of the kids, right? And then I watch it when I'm a little older, and I'm putting myself in the role of the adults, and now I watch it as a father, and I'm like, oh no, kids in danger! No, I gotta protect the kids! Oh no! And it's been interesting, like becoming a father and realizing how my perspective on different bits of pop culture has been changing because of it. And so I went from identifying with the kids to wanting to protect the kids, over time, and that's really interesting.
So essentially, you kind of sort of were Dr. Grant.
Yeah.
Started off hating kids, and by the end of the thing, he was holding them close as they're flying away from the island.
Well, and so that's another thing, right? Like I read Jurassic Park a couple times when I was a kid, like when I was way too young to be reading it. I probably read it when I was like 10 years old, and I didn't have any idea what Malcolm was talking about and all that stuff, but I like really enjoyed it. And but like watching what Spielberg did to it specifically, because people give Spielberg flack for this sometimes, but I can't, because he's just so good at it. Just like there's always that family element to his movies, right? And he took this movie that's just about like clone dinosaurs and a theme park run amok and everything like that, and he made it a story about like a man learning to become a father. Like at the start, like Ellie's pushing him to have kids. She wants to settle down with him. Yeah, some of them smell. Babies smell. Totally know every line. But like by the end of it, he has become this like father figure to these kids, and it's and like not many filmmakers would apply that to this, but I think it gives it really the heart of the movie, right? Is his relationship with the kids, and he goes from like avoiding them and hating them to being forced to protect them to like he's
genuinely caring.
He's got his arms around them at the end, and they're sleeping on him, and he's the dad there. It's really great, and it gives it this emotional punch that if you had done just a straight adaptation of the book, I don't know if you necessarily would have gotten.
I completely agree with that. I really love that angle. I love that the development of Dr. Grant's character. I also really love that there were accent slips sometimes. And one of my favorites is when they come across, they have to climb the electric fence, and Dr. Grant says, well, I guess that means the power's off, but he says it in such an Australian accent.
He says it exactly like that.
Well, I guess that means the power's off. I'm like, okay, Australia.
But that's so great, that sequence. I mean, just like just that cross-cutting. I mean, it's just a masterclass in the cross-cutting of two completely disparate scenes, but then suddenly they're coming together through the power, and she's clicking, and the camera goes down, and you see perimeter fences. Of course, the last one, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so good. And they're counting, and she's moving down, and they're counting, and really good. And then he doesn't let you go. Like, after that happens, and it's terrifying, you think, okay, now it's culminated because Tim's been, like, electrocuted. Oh, now she's being attacked by a raptor too, and it's just like he ups the tension again. It's just like it's just brilliant. It never lets you go.
I really like that the switch that happens, because when she's in the bunker, she's relatively safe, and this forming family out in the park is not safe. And so she turns the switch on, the power comes back on. Tim gets electrocuted. Tim gets revived, so now he's safe-ish. And then she's in the one in actual very real danger, and they switched it so beautifully. Yeah. It was really well done. One of the things I actually really liked about this film that still holds up for me, mostly because of when I was a kid, they were teaching dinosaurs as basically two-legged reptiles. The whole idea of dinosaurs being more bird-like was controversial enough that Dr. Grant seemed like an outsider in the community for suggesting it, which was really super cool.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, actually, you were right on the edge of that. You were correct, and it actually makes the movie hold up.
Yeah, that's true, because the advisor on the film, I can't remember his name, he was the main proponent of that theory, like the dinosaurs evolved into birds theory, and he was their advisor on the film, and so that's how that got in there. And then ultimately history has proven, at least that's the leading theory now, and so
It's
if they
proven
had
fairly accurate considering now that they think a lot of the two-legged dinosaurs in particular were feathered.
yeah.
They found fossilized.
They found
rock
fossilized feathers. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
they like if they had gone with a different advisor, then they wouldn't necessarily have inserted quite that much of it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been correct. The science wouldn't have held up quite so well.
Yeah, like they had shots like in the and we should definitely talk about the kitchen scene, but
oh my god!
but there were shots in there, and you can see in the animatics on the Blu-ray or DVD, and like the raptors would go around and their tongues would be flicking out like a snake. And you can still see evidence of it when the ladle falls over, and it kind of pans over. But as it's panning over, if you look at the Velociraptor, its tongue is coming out and it's licking the ladle like it's checking it out. But the tongues used to be coming out all the time, and that advisor was like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, we figured, reptile like a snake or something like that." He's like, "No, they're more like birds, so take out the tongues and that kind of thing." But of course now they still have the scaly skin in the movies, and that's kind of their look and. Yeah.
Frog DNA, that's what I'm putting it down to.
Dino DNA.
I loved how terrifying that kitchen scene was. My last note before the end of the movie when I was making notes on the film is the two kids versus the raptors equals great. That was a fantastic sequence.
It's still probably one of the most tense
sequences
in like a major blockbuster because it's kids in peril.
Yeah.
And it's like, and obviously they're no match for them, so they just have to like, they're just like barely keeping them away, and like the reflection gag with
I like that because it was clever.
It was clever girl, but I didn't get that when I was a kid. I remember not getting that, like not understanding that it was a reflection, because again I saw it when I was like 7 years old, and like for the next couple of years I was just like,
you thought it was just...
I'm just like, how did that all work out? And then when it finally clicked for me, I felt like an idiot, but I was like I was like, oh yes, because she was there and it was reflecting,
and it was reflecting. But yeah. I remember still, like even on Friday when I was watching this, and she's like, no, I'm like, I knew what was happening, but I was still like, oh my god.
Yeah, and then it just goes like it goes all out into ridiculousness at the end. I mean, like they figure out how to open doors, and the raptors are popping up everywhere, and then the T-Rex suddenly shows up, and how does it end up in this big atrium when nobody notices until it grabs it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly, and like that was. The original ending was that the fossilized bones were just going to fall and crush the raptors, and that's how they were going to get out. And then they realized they needed more punch to it, and it was totally one of those things where it's just like, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah, but it's the very end of the movie, and if we did our jobs right, and everybody's blood is pumping, and everybody's really excited, nobody's going to question it too much.
Also, that roar at the end is iconic.
Oh yeah,
absolutely iconic.
When dinosaurs ruled the earth as the banner's falling
down,
he's still there.
Yeah,
so good. Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, it's really great. And then and you have somebody like Jeff Goldblum as Dr. Malcolm. You heard of the
oh come on, Jeff Goldblum was playing Jeff Goldblum.
You heard of the statue they made in London, right? It was up briefly. They had like a 20-foot shirtless Malcolm like leaning, and it was right by the Thames. Because they made like a bobblehead or a Funko doll that was like that was the leaning like shirt open Malcolm, and then somebody made like this 20-foot statue of him and like plunked it down by the river. Like just like people love Malcolm, and
I mean he was great in this movie. He was absolutely great.
But what I will say, another thing that helps it hold up is besides like the heart and how well the action is done and everything like that. One of my favorite scenes in the movie, honestly, is when they're sitting around having lunch and discussing the ethics of doing that. And it's like, so much of that is in the book. And basically all that discussion that they have in the book is condensed down into this one scene. And if you're a big fan of the book, you might think they dumbed it down too much by just putting in this one scene. But then on the other hand, like a lot of blockbusters wouldn't even make time for that scene, right? Where it's just like they're sitting around and they're saying like, this is ethically wrong. Like you spent so much time thinking about whether you could, you didn't stop to think if you should. And like, we don't know what's going to happen here. You can't just like do this. And Hammond's just like amazement that nobody's actually backing him up on this amazing
except for
thing
the blood-sucking lawyer.
Yeah, and I think that scene is one of the greatest scenes in the movie because it just like not many films would slow down and just be like, let's actually talk about like the ethics of this and whether we should be doing this, and before the dinosaurs start eating people inevitably, like yeah.
I have to say, some of the quieter moments were some of the best. Like when Dr. Hammond is having his discussion with Dr. Sadler. Dr. Hammond, Mr. Hammond is having his discussion with Dr. Sadler, and sort of the last really dejected thing he says is "spared no expense," and I'm just like, oh,
a really good ice cream, because they
did a good job of humanizing him.
Yeah,
because he was a real jerk in the book, right?
Yeah.
Like he
I
was
like that
straight
there's
up
still
evil.
he was straight up evil, and they changed that, but there's still like some subtle traces, like the fact that he's willing to do the park in the first place, and the fact that he's sparing no expense on anything except his employee's salary, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, spared no expense except for Nedry, right?
Newman.
But yeah, that's such a great scene, because he's just so caught up in the possibility, and aren't I great that I did this amazing thing, and people will love it, and people will love me for it, and like I'm in control of this, and it's just mine, and she's just pointing out, like, you're not in control. Like, these are living creatures, and like you've totally lost control, and it's not going to work out. Yeah, and it's the dawning on him. It's that dejected line. It's like dawning on him, like, I don't think this is going to go my way, and that's great, right? Because he was like a real mustache twirling villain in the book, and here, like, and I think part of it is Richard Attenborough. He just like imbues it with such heart and such pathos that you're just like. You feel for him, like it's this is his dream, and he's just like dream. Yeah, it's going away.
Yeah, and it's all falling down in one great big bloody pile.
Yeah, and his grandchildren are probably gonna die out there at that point in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's all of that. Like the cast is just so great, and there's enough of those slowed down, quiet scenes that of character building that it really works. Even like Samuel L. Jackson was not really anybody at this point, right? Like Pulp Fiction was still over a year away, and he had been popping up in little things. He's in Goodfellas and stuff like that, but this was just one of those early Samuel L. Jackson roles where a lot of people watch Jurassic Park and they're like, is that Samuel L. Jackson? What? Like, Nick Fury's in this movie? Mace Windu's in this movie? Like, what is happening? And then, yeah.
Oh, and in true horror style, at least he wasn't the first to die, though.
First guy to die was a black guy, though.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, it was one of the workers at the gate, like the one that gets the first minute of the movie.
Oh yeah, I didn't think he was I thought he was like.
Well, he's Latino, probably.
Yeah, that's right.
Native.
Okay, I don't know.
First person to die was a person of color.
Person of color, yeah. And then also Samuel L. Jackson. So that's.
Funny thing about
typical.
that scene, the opening scene, like the 1 minute thing. It made me realize I might have become a bit of a misanthrope.
Because you're like, good. You should have died, poor Velociraptor.
No, that's the thing. They were like, the Velociraptor was in that tiny, tiny cage, going to that tiny living thing that would not fit it, and they were like, when it made room, when it was jamming against the grate and trying to get out, there were like 12 people tasering it all at once, and Muldoon screaming, shoot it, and I'm like, leave the giant baby alone!
Speaking of giant babies, I appreciated how much of a kitten the T-Rex was. like it sees the moving light and it's like, ooh, string! Follows after it like a cat. But yeah, no, I get what you're going for, because I had the same reaction. I'm like, that poor thing.
Yeah.
I know it's a giant murderous turkey, but poor thing.
I had that reaction at 10.
Weird. Well, and that was the really bad one too, because you find out later that one killed all but 2 of the other raptors, and then kind of started leading them into coordinated attacks, and so they were taking her out of circulation because she was becoming too smart, too dangerous, and everything like that. But again, it's like they had no control of these things that they've created. They didn't really understand how smart they were going to be, and yeah, this was just there trying to somehow keep control, but you can't keep control, right?
You can't
as soon as the power went off on the raptor cages, she got out, So yeah, you're totally right. Like, yeah, so they deserve everything they got. Well, actually, the most recent one I was discussing, the 5th Jurassic movie, I was discussing with a friend, and I was kind of saying, so on it and everything, and the friend I was talking to was like, do people get eaten by dinosaurs? I'm like, well, yeah. And then she's like, yeah, that's fine. That's all I'm looking for in a Jurassic movie. I was like, okay, well, that's fair.
I like your friend.
Yeah, so there you go. That's what people go to see these movies for. But this one has a lot to it, and I think that's why it holds up so much. I think the heart and the intelligence and just how well directed it is. I mean, that's why it holds up. That's why we still talk about it with reverence 25 years later, which is great.
Yeah, it is a good movie. Was there anything that you didn't like about it?
Well, you said you were so on it. Like, is there any particular reason?
No, nothing special. I mean, it was just it had been a while since I watched it, but I remember really liking it, and I was trying to remember why I really liked it, and it took me a while to like go back and remember. After watching when I rewatched it this weekend, it was just, well, yeah, okay, as a movie it works, but I don't. Why was I so gaga about it?
Yeah.
Oh, because for its time it was groundbreaking.
It was.
Yeah.
But I mean, you think about it, like there was like one sequence in the Abyss and like one character in Terminator 2, and then you have.
I love that movie.
It's great.
Yeah.
Director's Cut is the best, or the special edition is the best. Yeah, but it was just like so. It just was light years ahead of everything else at the time, and then it took like other movies like years to catch up to what Jurassic Park did. Like, it was amazing. Like, if they had done it like stop motion like they were originally intending to, like, it just like I don't know. Because
that would not have worked.
Computer effects weren't really a thing, right? Yeah. Like they created. It's like Star Wars. Like, they had to figure out how to do the things to be able to make that movie, and they had to figure it out.
Same with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they were pushing boundaries, and that's why they still hold up so well. But yeah, no, for me, like, Spielberg, again, one of my favorite directors, maybe my favorite director, and like there's a certain group of his movies that I think are just practically perfect in every way, like his Mary Poppins movies. But like, yeah, like movies like Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I guess E.T., Schindler's List, Jurassic Park. By the way, Schindler's List and Jurassic Park, both directed by Steven Spielberg, both came out in 1993. What a year.
Really?
What a year.
I didn't know that about Schindler's List.
Schindler's List is one of the greatest movies ever made, period. And like Jurassic Park is one of the greatest like action adventure like blockbusters ever made. Both the same year. Won Best Director that year and Best Picture for Schindler's List, but amazing. And then maybe like Saving Private Ryan probably for him. But those movies are just, for me, like just unimpeachable, like just the best of the best. And so I think this movie's pretty much perfect. I love it.
I think it's a great movie. I wouldn't say it's pretty much perfect, but yeah. I have to relay a story of I've already told these guys, but I watched this when I was 12. We went to the drive-in. I was fine the entire movie, which is weird because I hated scary movies. But this whole movie I was like absolutely wrapped. Like, this is amazing. And then on the drive home, my sister turns to me and says, "Now imagine something as intelligent as a velociraptor walking down the hall towards your bedroom." I didn't sleep for 3 weeks. That scene wasn't scary to me at the time. The whole velociraptor thing wasn't scary to me at the time, but the concept is terrifying of this alpha predator who is also wicked smart just stalking you. Like, for 3 weeks, it was just every noise was a velociraptor. It was insane. So I really liked how the concepts stick with you. And they have since I've watched it. I didn't watch it in the cinema because our town didn't have a cinema in 1993. We watched it at the drive-in.
Well, at least
a
you had
couple of
that.
years later. Yeah, at least we had that. So yeah, final thoughts and star rating, Marajoalaine? Sorry, I went to you as soon as you told me. How rude! I'm sorry.
Okay, final thoughts. It's a good movie. It's a very well-made movie. I guess I never really thought about how well done and how unique it is, how groundbreaking for the time, and it never occurred to me, but having heard it mentioned, it raises my opinion of the movie a little bit. Star rating maybe 3.5?
X. Yeah. Mike?
Hmm.
Let me guess.
1 star? No.
6 out of 5.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah, if I'm gonna give a movie 5 stars, I'm gonna give it to Jurassic Park. Like, it's, yeah, I think it's perfect. I think it is great and it is groundbreaking. I made a lot of those points, but also I attempt to look at it objectively, and I think it still holds up. I think this movie, as it is, you know, like, coming out now, like, I think would be just as good, you know, but if it came out now, then we wouldn't have 25 years of computer-generated effects in blockbusters and things like that, probably. So, yeah, just perfect.
So 4 stars for me. I really like this movie as well. There are scenes, even now, there are scenes that are still super tense, and then there are scenes that are really very touching. And I love the character arcs. But yeah, this is something I would be happy letting my kids watch. You know, I'll deal with the nightmares. But yeah, it's a good film, and I can't believe I don't actually have it in my collection. I had to rent it. So, I need to rectify that. Alright, who wants to pick the next movie?
Go for it.
Okay. So, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh, yeah! Is it the original? It's the 1959 version.
Cool.
Cool beans. Okay, so that's what we'll be discussing next week. If you have any thoughts about Jurassic Park, you can leave them down in the comments below. I lurk and sometimes respond. And don't forget to... Oh, if you have any suggestions for other movies, we'd happily accept those too. There we go. I think that's everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you later.
Okay!
We are totally recording.
Oh.
Okay.
Cool.
I mean, I keep entering. I like it.